Hey everyone, this is Patrick Smith again here at the West Virginia Game Developers Expo 2019, and I'm here with Jeremy Doolin, who is actually from West Virginia Northern, which is a community college that's a sister to our college here. How are you doing, sir?
Fantastic, having a great time.
Yeah, so Jeremy actually teaches programming up there, but you're also getting ready to start your own company here with Doolin Digital, and you've been a speaker for us several times, and you brought a game this time.
Yeah.
So tell us about your game.
Well, I have to say that the last 2 years of attending West Virginia Game Developers Expo has been really motivational and inspirational. My first year, I didn't really know what to expect, but I gave a presentation, had a great time, met a lot of people. But last year, when I left, I was so motivated. I thought, I'm going to be an exhibitor next year. That's it. I figured out what I want to do. So the project that I was working on, which was in a very early fledgling state, all you could do was walk around a map. You couldn't even talk to NPCs. That's where it was last year, and so now this year we've got something a lot more. It's a 2D strategy RPG, very similar to the Shining Force games that were on the Sega Genesis, and somewhat similar to the Fire Emblem games on Nintendo systems.
I honestly didn't play either of those series, but when I look at it, I get a warm feeling that feels an awful lot like Final Fantasy II or Final Fantasy III from the SNES days. That's what I feel. Now, I mean, I'm curious. You probably know more than me. You probably play more RPGs. What are the subtle differences you would have between, say, the Shining Force series and those?
In my game or the Final Fantasy games?
Well, I guess I guess when I see this and I think of Final Fantasy, like, am I reading too much into it, or are they similar? Or?
No, Shining Force is an interesting bridge between the classic JRPG style, like Final Fantasy, where you're walking around towns and talking to people and uncovering puzzles and buying items at shops. But then it has the 2D tactical RPG system of something like Fire Emblem. So you have the grid-based maps. It's all about positioning your characters, watching your enemies' positions, and using strategy and distance and using the various skills.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you there because some of the earlier Final Fantasy games, I remember you could hit someone in the back row, and I never thought about it till later on. And in some of the higher end Final Fantasy games, I'm like, why am I constantly missing hitting someone in the back row? And I never thought, well, of course they're behind other people. So that actually did bring in that tactics in the game.
Absolutely.
That way. That's cool.
Yeah, some of the characters in this game have different ranges. The archers can attack from a distance. The soldiers that can throw spears can attack from a distance. Mages, while others are right in your face melee characters like the swordsman and the monk and others.
So tell me, how did you get into programming and game design?
Well, like many gamers, I've always been curious about it.
Sure.
I wasn't planning on being a game developer at any time. I thought that was an impractical career choice. And of course, at the time I went to college, it probably was. That was the late 90s, and we didn't have nearly the number of tools and opportunities that we have now, especially thanks to the internet. So I didn't even think really much about
being. Or they weren't affordable tools.
No, they weren't either.
Yeah.
And very highly specialized. So I wasn't even thinking about it. But when I started teaching at Northern and teaching programming, I found myself using games as an example quite a bit in my classes, just because I knew the students could relate to those examples.
Sure.
And the more examples I used, the more curious I got about it, and the more I kept thinking about how I really wish there was a Shining Force game again.
Right.
They hadn't made one since the 90s, and I missed it. I missed the style. Fire Emblem kind of scratches that itch, but not quite the same.
Right.
So I started off with just a simple fan project, thinking, hey, you know what would be great? If I did such a good job that I got a cease and desist from Sega. But I eventually found an artist and a composer, and so I'm not using any of Sega's intellectual property.
I gotcha.
I have my own creation based on my own storyline, and a lot of medieval history and literature, something I was able to give in a presentation today, which was fun.
So you mentioned last year you just had that demo, which we're going to show that, where you could just walk around, you couldn't talk to anybody whatsoever, and now you've got this more full-fledged game. Where do you feel like you are in the life cycle? Are you getting closer to a pre-release, that type of thing, early access, or where are you at with the life cycle?
Well, the way I'm looking at it, and the plan that I made was to get the engine, we'll say 90 to 95% complete. Basically the engine that I want, that I can now use as a platform to build the rest of the game. In other words, just creating the content, creating characters and maps and the quests, cutscenes, and all of that fun stuff. I will already have had all of the engine prepared and ready to go to create that content. I'm almost done with the engine. I have some bugs to work out. I have a few small changes and improvements that I want to make, but otherwise the engine is in a really good place.
Okay.
So next year is going to be a very busy year for content creation.
Yeah.
I'm going to be spending a lot of time in my map editor, talking to my artists and my pixel artists and creating my character sprites. So it's all about the content from here on out.
That's awesome.
It would be great if I could have something ready to go in about a year to a year and a half.
I mean, well, yeah, if you had it another year, that would be an awesome story to be like, look at this early demo where I couldn't talk to anybody, look at this next demo, look at the next year that I've got to complete a game. I mean, you could see the trajectory and map it through the expos here.
Absolutely.
So that's good. What platforms are you, and I know it's early stages, but what platforms are you wanting to push this for?
Well, certainly Windows, Mac OS, Linux, that's not a problem. I have builds for all three of those now as it is. I would love to get on the Switch because I think that would be a great platform. The Fire Emblem fans and a lot of the strategy RPG fans are playing games on the Switch. But otherwise, that's the plan. Perhaps itch.io and Steam for distribution.
Okay.
I'm open to other ideas. I'm still learning all about the distribution aspect, and I'm learning a lot from people here at the Expo.
Yeah, that works out. We can get together as a community and learn how did you release your game, what was the hoops you had to jump through and stuff. That's great. So if people are really interested in this and they want to follow along, where can they track the trajectory of your game?
Well, I have a website, doolin-digital.com, and there's a sub-website for Ballad of Theriana. I'm also pretty active on Twitter. That's probably my most active promotional area. I'm posting screenshots. I try to post something for every screenshot Saturday. Very regular updates there. I also push out to Instagram and Facebook. It's at Doolin Digital, all one word.
Okay.
So Twitter's probably the best way to keep up. I try to post a lot there. Now that I'm done with grad school, which I just finished last month,
Congratulations.
I'll be working on this a lot more and having a lot more screenshots to and videos to put out there.
Last question for you. What advice would you have for somebody who's watching this at home and saying, I really like playing games. I got a really great idea to make a game, but I'm not nearly as cool as he is. I don't have the experience he has. What advice would you give that person sitting there?
Well, if you're interested in playing games or design or building games, you probably at least have some sort of a skill that you're either already good at or that you're planning on becoming good at. Something like artwork, sound, programming, game design, maybe even something like project management. Start with something that you're already good at among those, something that a game is going to need. And then anything that you feel like you could learn, start to learn that. My example, I've been a programmer for 20 years. That's what I went to school for.
Sure.
So programming, no problem for me. That was my strong suit. But I can't make pixel art. I can't make character art. I got in touch with somebody here at the Expo. Julia DeStefano is my character artist, so these two characters are by Julia. And I contacted somebody on the internet for my pixel art. I have a composer from England. I met another artist on Twitter through social media. So what I can't do, I find somebody else who can. Maybe it's somebody that I know, or maybe it's somebody that I'm looking for and actually just looking to hire and commission.
That's excellent.
So whatever you can do, start with that.
Yeah.
And whatever you can't do, find somebody else who can. And don't be afraid to Google it.
Yeah, fantastic
There are a lot of
advice.
research. Don't be afraid to read books either.
Yeah, I know, I'm sure in your programming classes as well as ours, there's a lot of people who love making the game art, but they have no clue about the code, and somebody else in that class makes code but is not an artist, and those two typically get together, and that way you got peanut butter and jelly, and you've got a wonderful combination. So yeah, definitely go for your strengths.
Yeah, don't feel like you have to do everything yourself. That's, let somebody else solve the problems that you have a difficult time solving yourself.
Awesome.
It doesn't all have to be your job.
Yeah. Well, fantastic, sir. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for talking to me. Thank you so much for coming to the Expo. I hope you have a good one.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to come back.